We will now take you on a journey into the deepest abysses of satanic ritual violence. Worldwide child abduction committed by an elite perpetrator network, as evidenced by countless survivors and witnesses. If we don't look, if we don't all shed light on this together, the perpetrators will be able to go on like this forever. But this is over with now. We've reached the end of the tunnel.
Therefore, please share this video in all languages.
Child trade XXL.
Children are being needlessly separated from their families because of the Adoption and Safe Families Act, an executive order transformed into law by Bill and Hillary Clinton in 1997. It takes the money from Social Security funds and gives it to the states to motivate them to withdraw babies.
So you have one option at this point. You need to give him to the EMT, and you can go on your merry way with your friends and your family who's out there.
That's not merry at all.
Or I remove him from you and you go to jail. You need to make that decision. You need to make it now, please.
I won't let him go.
Okay. Go ahead and jump all the way for me. Okay, please let him go so he does not get hurt, okay? Come here, little buddy. Okay.
I let him go.
She's going to jail. Okay.
I just said I couldn't, but I let him go.
Put your hands on your back, please, okay?
They closed the ambulance door. That was the last thing I saw.
Why not?
No, go in the car. In the car. It's all right. It's okay.
Cyrus!
It's okay. In the car.
No, let me say bye.
You're gonna make it worse. You're gonna make it worse. Say goodbye.
Every child, once you've added it all up, is worth approximately $1 million to the state. But we've been told that this is a $60 to $80 billion a year industry, meaning the federal government is taking $80 billion a year and giving that money to all of the 50 states to kidnap children.
It's beyond belief. And honestly, Chris, had I not seen this with my own eyes, I could not believe that the federal government has become the white glove delivery service. I mean, literally the middleman of a child trafficking operation.
Yeah, they're running it. I mean, it's
stonewalling this data, hiding it from law enforcement. 320,000 plus children, nobody knows where they are.
Right.
And that's unacceptable.
We have 500,000 children who had sponsors in this country that we can't find.
Dr. Andrea Costides names 160 known cases in which children and young people in SOS children's villages were raped for years by super rich. There are 575 children's villages worldwide with 5,000 employees. Costides provides the evidence and names. Repeatedly, authorities are said to have been involved in these evil machinations.
According to a documentary by French broadcaster N24, the turnover of child abusers is estimated at 300 billion euros worldwide. Around 1 billion of these are in Germany alone. However, the number of unreported cases is far higher.
According to the Federal Criminal Police, more than 18,000 victims of child sexual abuse were recorded in Germany in 2024. According to investigators, the actual number is likely to be significantly higher.
According to an independent commission of inquiry in New Zealand, around 200,000 children, adolescents, and disabled people are said to have been abused in state and religious care facilities. The sale of children to well-known personalities suggests a large network. Drugs, violence, and electric shocks point to psychological torture as practiced with MK Ultra.
2 Secret Service agents from Ukraine testify that over 9,000 children have disappeared in the Donbas region. They revealed names and organizations that place children from Ukraine with elite pedophiles in the UK. Both Secret Service agents became victims of an assassination attempt using explosives. One agent and a family member died in the blast. The other agent was injured and went into hiding.
But we still have records of his. Vasily Pracharov uncovered the structures of child trafficking in Ukraine and named names. In doing so, he revealed the entire processes and connections of child trafficking. According to his statements, the children are sent abroad under the pretext of evacuation from the combat zone, either for treatment in British clinics or to study at educational institutions in Great Britain. Babies are also said to be sold on the black market to almost all Western countries under the pretext of surrogacy or adoption. Ukraine's security service is said to be at the forefront of child trafficking.
Former MP Andrew Bridgen conveyed this incriminating evidence from intelligence agents to the police security services and M15, but no action was taken. He also passed on the information on systematic child trafficking and pedophilia of high-ranking personalities to the National Crime Agency, but nothing happened. He then sent all the evidence to high-ranking politicians. The only result of all his efforts against child abuse was that he himself was accused of pedophilia by the police.
The top of the top of, we believe, the pyramid, who are coordinating this crime. You can see why there's no appetite from the establishment to investigate.
Bridgen was accused of being a member of the Freemasons and of participating in ritual child abuse at Masonic meetings. However, Andrew Bridgen testified that he had refused to join the Freemasons 30 years ago and that he never had been a member.
Another independent journalist experienced exactly the same thing. When he passed on the evidence of child trafficking from one of the secret agents to the British National Crime Agency, the police and MI5, no one took action. He also talks about Natalia Urban, a well-known journalist who investigated against trafficking organizations. She was as brave as a lioness. Afterwards, she apparently took her own life by jumping off a bridge.
Former U.S. General Mike Flynn describes Ukraine as a hub for arms, drugs, and child trafficking. The human rights defenders of the Foundation to Battle Injustice apparently exposed high-ranking NATO officials who are said to be involved in organizing pedophile networks in EU countries. According to the Foundation, high-ranking military officers were using their position to abuse children and were also forcing their subordinates to do so. Photos and videos were being recorded in order to put them under pressure. The Foundation has uncovered heinous pedophilia experiments by NATO and the CIA as part of the MK-Ultra mind control program. MK-Ultra is a CIA research project on the possibilities of mind control via most brutal methods of torture. A report by the CIA's Inspector General confirms this research. According to numerous witnesses' statements, the program is still continuing. According to the statements of the Foundation, the media and the International Criminal Court are being prevented from investigating and reviewing these atrocities.
The UN whistleblower Professor MacLeod reports on UN security personnel who abducted young girls from the Yugoslavian war zone. They were said to have chained them in cages to be used as sex slaves by UN employees. The UN was said to have known about it and was covering up the incidents.
Around 50,000 children were taken out of the country during the war in Yugoslavia. An ex-officer in the Yugoslav Secret Service sold children to Western business partners at a unit price of 20,000 German marks. Neither the Red Crescent nor the Red Cross returned the children to their parents. They are missing.
Since the 1970s, ex-FBI chief Ted Gunderson has been investigating satanic crimes against children in the USA and the involvement of high-ranking circles and the CIA in international child trafficking. According to his statements, around 100,000 children are victims every year. Ted Gunderson was poisoned, according to the statements of a doctor.
Guido Grant sneaked inside the pedocriminal scene as an undercover journalist to identify structures and perpetrators in order to pass the information on to the criminal investigation authorities. In the process, he obtained gruesome snuff videos in which babies, children of all ages, and adults were cruelly tortured, raped, and sometimes killed on camera. In his book, Hardcore Child Satanism, Volume 3, he describes the ritual abuse and torture of 109 victims. A total of 3,946 victims, 796 perpetrators, and 41 witnesses were identified. His books, Hardcore Child Satanism 1 and 2, are not even mentioned here. For example, Caro M., Heike E., Irene Z., Michaela J., and Mona C. report on satanic ritual murders of babies, children, and adults, as well as cannibalism, rape, and most cruel torture. In his books, Guido Grant gives a very plausible and multifaceted account of the strategies perpetrators use in order to avoid being discovered.
Guido Grant is the best-known journalist in the German-speaking area researching satanic ritual violence. Many years ago, the public media still referred to his research and published his warnings about Satanism. However, this has not been the case for a long time, although experts even confirm in a government report from England that satanic ritual abuse is no myth.
Now let's take a look at a recent case from Germany.
From the age of 2, an affected girl always came back completely devastated after she had been visiting her father. She cried and screamed the whole time. She said that her father had taken her to men in black hoods who had cruelly tortured and abused her. Photos had been taken of her. She complained of abdominal pain and had major problems with bowel movements and was terrified of them. While making an ultrasound, the pediatrician discovered an extreme dilation of her rectum. The mother said that the child had bad flashbacks almost every night when she screamed in pain with eyes open for 1 or 2 hours. Stop it, I can't take it anymore, stop it. Her dad had threatened to kill her dog if she told anyone. The child screamed loudly, I never want to see dad again. However, no investigations were initiated against the father. The result of all the hearings, despite the statements of all the experts, the mother and the child, was forced placement with the father. He was given sole custody. The mother was said to have talked the child into all this.
Zovend experienced the same thing with her daughter, Severine with her little boy Amoris, who was raped and tortured. He had a dilated and even torn anus, but the same game started again. Just like with the children of Dalila Sadok and many other mothers.
Judiciary blocks prosecution.
We will now put ourselves in this child's shoes. How is it supposed to defend itself? Who will listen to this child when even all the confirmations of the experts are being ignored? Not even the ultrasound of the dilated rectum triggered an investigation against the father. I myself was recently brutally beaten up on the street. This broke my nose and caused further damages. There were photos from witnesses. We had the license plate number and everything. However, the police did not take any measures on their own initiative and did not impose any punishment. Everything depended on me. I would have to file a criminal complaint. I would have to go to court if any punishment was to be handed out. Now, that's the way the criminal law works, but imagine this boy, what is he supposed to do? Who has no photos, no license plates, and no witnesses to stand behind him. And this is one of the most harmless videos I have put up here for you. But we have to identify with this distress. Stephanie, how come no investigation was initiated against the father despite all the mother's and the child's statements?
Yes, Lois, that's what Uwe Kranz, the former head of a German state criminal investigation department, will explain to us. He has dedicated over 50 years of his life to fight child sexual abuse and reports the justice system to be the worst element in all this. When the police investigate cases and pass them on to the public prosecutor's office, these are almost always dropped by the judiciary. Kranz speaks of an entire industry built on child trafficking. Thousands of children disappear every year. He speaks of 60,000 missing children in Ukraine alone. This has been proven by parliamentarians and committees of inquiry. The systems for recording and prosecuting such cases could be improved and expanded. But there seems to be a lack of political will. Many politicians and parliaments are said to be involved themselves and do not want things to come to light. It is said beside Epstein's list, there are more lists that show which congressmen, singers, artists, and Hollywood people are involved.
Auf eins conducted an interview with Uwe Kranz, Guido Grant, and Werner Reichel on the global child molester networks. Werner Reichel wrote a book about this network of child molesters. In it, he explains, for example, how in the case of Natascha Kampusch, only one single perpetrator was identified from the outset, as was the case with Dutroux and Otto Mühl. The same is said to apply to the Teichtmeister case. According to Reichel, this guy's laptop would have been the jackpot to uncover the entire pedophile network. His involvement in Freemasonry was well known. However, individual perpetrators were put forward to divert attention from the perpetrator networks again and again. More about this in the program Judiciary Involved in Pedocriminal Networks. In Natascha Kampusch's case, the public prosecutor's office wanted to end the case as quickly as possible. The chief investigator, Franz Kohl, however, never believed in the single perpetrator theory. He investigated several perpetrators, as there were hundreds of indications of accomplices. Even during his lifetime, he was repeatedly bullied and obstructed in his investigations, so that he eventually continued to investigate privately. This seemed to have been his death sentence. After his death, his brother took the laptop with all the private investigative results. The public prosecutor's office placed the brother in custody and confiscated the laptop. It was then officially announced that allegedly nothing relevant could be found on the laptop.
Speaking of which, Professor David Collum said, if the contents of Anthony Weiner's laptop were ever released, it would bring down the entire US government. He says that 9 police officers watched the videos and had to leave the room again and again because they couldn't bear what they saw. All 9 are now dead. A criminal investigator also reports that police officers are obstructed when they follow up and investigate these cases. They are bullied, ostracized, or the case is taken from them. It is claimed that they are not objective enough, too close to the victim, or biased. He also tells of so many victims who give the same gruesome accounts of ritual violence that his alarm bells were ringing. It has to exist even if you don't want it that way in your head. However, he's not allowed to speak openly about ritual violence, which is why he has to make these statements anonymously.
Zurich police officer Peter Mattis reports on a similar case in which a suspected pedophile court president was investigated. He had regularly traveled to Paris to abuse boys there. The French investigators were already ready for an observation and a possible arrest in Paris. Everything was prepared. However, when the Zurich public prosecutor's office heard about the case, it immediately halted the investigation. The proceedings were discontinued. But police officer Mattis, case officer Rudy Urban, and an investigating judge made various attempts, submitted evidence, and wanted to take the matter to court, but they were rebuffed at various points. According to Mattis, the senior public prosecutor said something like, "If anyone dares to lift a little finger against the accused court president again, he can pack his suitcase and leave." Mattis names names in the interview with KlaTV.
Kevin testifies to this abuse of justice from the victim's point of view. He came to foster parents as a small child and was abused for years by them, their daughter, and the family doctor. It concerned serious sexual abuse and torture. Kevin says that the family doctor issued medical certificates so that he would not be taken to his biological parents. A neutral expert later drew up a report at the children's home, whereupon the parents filed a complaint. Important witnesses were not even summoned by the chief judge. The defendant was acquitted and even rewarded with 2,000 francs in compensation.
Elitist criminal network.
So up to this point, we can conclude that, according to all these testimonies, top judicial officials keep blocking the investigation of such cases. Police officers are hindered in their investigations, especially when it comes to uncovering elite networks of perpetrators. Exactly these elite perpetrator networks have already been reported by 385 survivors of ritual abuses in my 3-part series, The Blood Sect, which I've published in the past 3 years. I gave a total of 213 witnesses a chance to speak out in these 3 movies. This year, 640 more victims and over 80 more witnesses have already been added to this list, some of whom we will mention in this movie.
Lois, may I ask, who are the perpetrators? Is it a specific group? Who do the victims name as perpetrators?
We conducted an analysis with the statements of the now total of 1,024 survivors in my 4 documentaries, who gave names or backgrounds of the perpetrators. In fact, perpetrators were named in every single one of the 12 subject areas of our international media agency. Here you can see the subject area breakdown at KlaTV. The more than 25,000 extensively researched KlaTV broadcasts provide a clear picture here. The elite perpetrator networks cover all 12 subject areas.
If I may interrupt you for a moment, Lois, since internet censorship is constantly advancing and such important information is increasingly being deleted, you can get our entire KlaTV archive with all 25,000 programs in over 80 languages for free. These are productions worth €1 billion, 13 years of voluntary work by thousands of contributors. You can find all the information you need at kla.tv/2+.
Exactly. Thank you, Stephanie. We have analyzed all the statements of the victims and witnesses, and the perpetrator names go through all areas. Let me just show you an example from the field of politics. I show the accused politicians who have been described as perpetrators by the victims in publicly exposed scandals here. Numerous U.S. politicians are named in the Franklin scandal, child rapes and manhunts in the Bohemian Grove. In the abuse cases surrounding the British child molester Jimmy Savile, in reports by child rights activist Peter McKelvey and by the survivor David from England, British pedocriminals are made public. Unfortunately, 40 names of MPs involved are being withheld from the public. Former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher covered this up. You can find the numerous sources below the program.
The so-called Reigns list also includes many British politicians who were perpetrators of satanic ritual abuse. Here, the psychiatrist Joanne Coleman has listed all the perpetrators named to her by her patient Helen G. and other patients. We have visibly filtered out the politicians from the huge Belgian network of perpetrators surrounding the Dutroux case, which comprises a total of around 90 child molesters, all solidly documented with sources. There are also witness statements and reports from other countries such as France, Portugal, and Germany about the involvement of politicians, and that is just the tip of the iceberg.
We've created a page on the public database Vitopedia where victims and witnesses of ritual violence, child placement, and child trafficking from all over the world can register. In this way, light is shed on these evil machinations and the perpetrator networks are exposed worldwide. So I call on all survivors and witnesses of ritual violence, please make sure you register on Vitopedia.org. Only then will there be light.
The victims and witnesses in the Epstein case also report on this elite perpetrator network. Before his election, Trump promised to publish all files on the Epstein case.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
But now, suddenly he has completely turned around and the files are not being released.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years.
I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff.
Nick Bryant published the flight logs of Epstein's black book on the internet back in 2015. On page 85, you can clearly read the name Donald Trump and many more names of prominent personalities. Nick got this information from Alfredo Rodriguez, Epstein's house manager. Virginia Giffre, a known Epstein victim, has confirmed all of the perpetrators highlighted by Rodriguez. Alongside Epstein, Virginia Giffre accused the elite people shown of having abused her. She was found dead in her home after a dubious accident on April 25th, allegedly by suicide. However, she said in a tweet sometime earlier that she was in no way suicidal, but that many evil people wanted to silence her.
Katie Johnson from California is another victim and testified she was raped by Epstein and Trump.
Specifically asked about me because I remind him of his daughter, and she said, well, she's 13 as well. So he knew the first time that he saw me. But he comes over mad because I was crying, and he said that I should be thankful that someone like Donald Trump took my virginity. He basically didn't say took my virginity.
In her affidavit, she shared that Trump enjoyed watching Epstein's orgies while he jerked off and that he complained about the oral sex he had had with a 13-year-old and a 12-year-old. Katie's description of Trump's rapes are recorded in the court transcript.
12th, on the fourth and final sexual encounter with the defendant Donald J. Trump, the plaintiff, Katie Johnson, was tied to a bed by defendant Trump, who then proceeded to forcibly rape plaintiff Johnson. During the course of the savage sexual attack, plaintiff Johnson loudly pleaded with defendant Trump to please wear a condom. Defendant Trump responded by violently striking plaintiff Johnson in the face with his open hand and screaming that he would do whatever he wanted, as he refused to wear protection. When the plaintiff Katie Johnson in tears asked defendant Trump what would happen if he had made her pregnant, defendant Trump grabbed his wallet and threw some money at her and screamed that she should use the money to get a fucking abortion.
The American journalist and author Michael Wolff reports that Trump's wife Melania had sex with Jeffrey Epstein a year before she met Trump. When Epstein accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted of sex trafficking, Trump said he wished her well. He had often met her in the past, as they both lived in Palm Beach. Epstein victim Maria Farmer testifies that Donald Trump always hung out with Epstein and his then-wife Ivana Trump with Ghislaine. The two of them often drove around together, talking to girls and getting their phone numbers.
Also, the successful top model Stacey Williams reveals the close friendship between Trump and Epstein. Epstein allegedly talked about Donald Trump all the time. He was the only friend he had ever mentioned. Epstein himself said in public that Trump was his closest friend. Stacey was even groped by Trump while Epstein was present.
No wonder Trump's recent state visit to the UK caused huge protests. British activists projected joint photos of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein onto a tower at Windsor Castle and were subsequently imprisoned. Incidentally, Trump demanded $10 billion from the Wall Street Journal in mid-July because they reported on Trump's alleged connections to Epstein.
Epstein's attorney, Alan Dershowitz, negotiated a deal with U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta that granted general immunity to all of Jeffrey Epstein's accomplices. This lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, was also accused of abuse by Virginia Roberts-Giuffre.
We could now report on many more Epstein victims, for example, Jess Michaels or the 24 victims in Palm Beach, the assaults on minors, and how the case was taken away from the police.
In any case, we now have a much better understanding of why the Epstein files have not yet been published. Epstein victim Juliette Bryant has predicted that she believes nothing will be published. After all, she experienced the elitist criminal network around Epstein firsthand. The video of her was already deleted on YouTube, but we saved it in time. So Juliette Bryant became a victim of an alleged model agency organized by Epstein at the age of 20. She was abused, exploited, and used for laboratory tests.
According to other sources, Trump himself incidentally also had such an agency called Trump Model Management Participation from the age of 14. According to numerous reports in the mainstream media, Trump's modeling agency also served as a facade for human trafficking. At least 28 young women filed charges of sexual misconduct, including rape. Trump stopped a Senate investigation during his first term.
Back to Juliette Bryant, the model victim. She reports that she once woke up naked and paralyzed on a lab bench surrounded by people in protective suits. She says that Epstein was good friends with Bill Clinton, Kevin Spacey, and Chris Tucker. Juliette testified that Epstein worked with Robert Maxwell and Leslie Wexner at the Mossad. David Icke confirms in an interview that Epstein had a blackmail operation on behalf of Israel and the Mossad. Epstein had also told Juliette personally that he had worked for the CIA. He apparently had photos of himself with the Pope and Fidel Castro, and he had been friends with George Bush, Trump, and Prince Andrew.
By the way, Trump recently told Fox News, "I don't know Prince Andrew." However, he was photographed together with Prince Andrew back in 2000. Too bad.
Juliet, according to her own statements, was also taken to Bill Richardson's mansion, and Epstein and Clinton were also there. It looked like everyone was having a meeting. After that, a very strange smell of urine and feces and something indefinably horrible came from the room. Juliet suspects it was the smell of a corpse. She also describes a cruel satanic ritual used by Epstein, which we cannot reproduce here. She points to numerous indications that certain circles of the so-called elite are deeply involved in occult practices. Over the years, numerous pieces of evidence have accumulated that tell of the dark reality of ritual sacrifices and the practice of black magic in elite circles.
Satanic ritual abuse.
In recent years, hundreds, if not thousands, of survivors of satanic ritual violence have come forward and broken the silence. Emma Catherine from the USA, for example, has given numerous survivors a voice on her channel. She does outstanding educational work and is highly valued by those affected worldwide. Matthias from Germany has also broken through a sound barrier with his channel Unbroken: Surviving Sexual Abuse. In his interviews, he gives a voice to many survivors, as does the Live Lion channel and the 50 Voices movement. Many channels and initiatives have emerged around the world to educate people about ritual abuse. All the survivors say the same thing, even if they speak different languages. Your movie series Blood Cult has also gone around the world in 42 languages and has reached 13.7 million views. You have set a decisive ball rolling, Lois. Here we see that your documentary has reached Israel.
Yes, exactly. Also in Israel, a flood of revealing reports has broken loose. We have been inundated with horrific reports of ritual violence in Israel from various sources. That's why we want to go in more detail now. But from the beginning, Yael Ariel was ritually abused and forced to harm other children from the age of 5 to 20. She was seriously injured during the rituals. However, Yael was always terrified of going public with her experiences. But then she observed how more and more survivors have uncovered the satanic ritual abuse in recent years, and it has spread very widely on the internet. So she took courage and took the plunge. In 2022, she published facts about ritual violence on Facebook. She reported she was shaking on her entire body for 2 hours afterwards. And then a huge avalanche started, with 60 survivors in the first batch coming forward from Israel, contacting her and telling the same stories of satanic ritual violence, sharing the same experiences that she had had. High-ranking individuals were involved in the ritual abuse throughout the country: doctors, high-ranking rabbis, police officers, educators, and also former and current Knesset members. Most of the perpetrators were said to come from the ultra-Orthodox and Zionist world. However, their works show that they only call themselves religious Jews but are not. Jesus called such deceivers the synagogue of Satan. According to Yael Ariel, however, there are victims from all sectors, including the Arab ones, because the perpetrators are believed to be working together.
In 2023, another very decisive step was taken. Daniel Sharon, the CEO of Bereshit magazine, the only alternative media in Israel, published the first article on ritual abuse. It is about over 200 ritually abused children in several neighborhoods in Jerusalem. This matter came to public attention in 2019 through the documentary The Dark Secret of Jerusalem. The first witness statements emerged in 2010, whereupon an investigation was launched. Over a period of 10 months, around 100 of the children concerned were questioned, and then only 2 insignificant figures on the fringes of the incidents were convicted. However, after a further 100 witness statements were received, the investigation had to be resumed. In August 2016, however, the files were closed again, on the grounds that the children had invented the story and the caregivers and therapists had planted false memories in the children's minds. The proceedings were discontinued. In December 2020, the case was brought before the Knesset, but without consequences. Daniel Sharon and Yael Ariel joined forces in the fight for investigative education and created a Hebrew website to expose ritual abuse. This sparked a national debate.
And then there is Shoshana Struk, the daughter of the current Minister of Settlement and Religious Affairs, Orit Struk. Shoshana published a video in which she states that she was sexually abused by both parents from an early age, and that the abuse was filmed for child pornography. She also remembers ritual violence. The video spread throughout the country within a day. Then it was banned by the highest authority and had to be deleted. By this time, however, it had already been distributed on all kinds of other channels and had more than 3 million views. The original video only had 1 million views. The media completely swept this case under the carpet.
Although the public media have hushed up the case, the cries of the survivors have become so loud that a broad mass of the Israeli people have woken up. The case came before the Knesset, and even the mainstream media could no longer avoid reporting on it. The hearings before the Knesset committees seem more like an alibi exercise. The survivors also accuse former and current Knesset members, among others, of being the perpetrators. Nevertheless, it was something of a dam break. 9 survivors of ritual violence testified before the Knesset committee.
Nechama told me about a very large criminal pedophile organization in which her mother played a central role. Nechama has been trying to stop her mother for 36 years. She knows the places, the names, and the details of the events. She had already contacted the police as a 10-year-old child, but nothing happened. She has the feeling that what happens is decided from above and that they want to cover it all up because it involves very, very high-ranking personalities.
Tess said that she went to the police when she was 6 years old because of crimes that happened to her and were filmed. But no one believed her and the file was closed. Then she heard from many people who had experienced the same thing. So she also posted her experiences online, and from that moment on, she received countless messages from women and men who contacted her and told their personal stories.
5 other survivors told the Knesset anonymously, off-camera, about cruel satanic torture rituals, which we do not wish to describe in detail. In addition to Yael Ariel, Yael Shidri testified. She testified to the ritual abuse she suffered from the age of 3 to 6 and from 12 to 22. She was taken from ritual to ritual by various groups. And there, for example, many naked men stood in a circle around her and did the cruelest possible things to her that a person could possibly think of.
Ritual abuse is something that the human mind cannot comprehend. You can't comprehend it. You cannot comprehend what it means to take a 3-year-old girl and program her with sadism, rape, threats, manipulation, and psychological games so that she does everything they say when they say it without anyone knowing about it, not even me.
מתי שהם יגידו, בלי שאף אחד יוכל לדעת, אפילו לא אני. אפילו לא אני.
Not even me, because I'm going to get up the next day and go to kindergarten. I'm going to go to school, and I'm going to go to high school. But I don't know what's going to happen to me. I will have many symptoms of depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, fears, and functional disorders, but I don't know why. Because they know what they are doing. They program us. They hunt us down. They made me abuse other girls and boys. They have programmed my brain so that they say words and I don't remember them. The police have known about it for a year. They don't have the resources to handle something that big, because those who would be brought down are very, very high-ranking people. People who run public authorities, run communities, they threaten us. We can't go to the police. I have children to protect. Your task is not only to understand what ritual abuse is, but also to create something that can deal with this crazy phenomenon, because the human mind of you and of the entire public is emotionally incapable of understanding what that is. And we have survived. They have tried to make us sitting here, the abuse victims who were present, into what they are. Recording was censored at this point. The people who have raped us, who have inflicted endless suffering on us through studies of human functionality, very understandable human rules, through techniques and formulas on how to control the brains of boys and girls. Your job is not only to understand what ritual abuse is, but to make sure that it stops here in Israel, in Safed, in Jerusalem, in Haifa, in Yadjuya, and everywhere in the country, regardless of sector and religion.
Yael Shitrit, we love you, and we will carry your cry with KlaTV to the ends of the earth. Yael, Ariel, Tess, Shoshana, Nechama, Daniel, Sharon, we love all of you, and we send you a heartfelt greeting of deepest solidarity to Israel.
The programming.
Florian Homm was a high-ranking member of high finance and managed up to around $3 billion. He was a German hedge fund manager, major investor and entrepreneur in the field of international asset management. He was a billionaire, owned 2 jets, castles, a decent luxury yacht, and 7,000 square meters of living space spread across various countries. He attended elite schools in the USA from an early age, graduated from Harvard University, and completed a Master of Business Administration at Harvard Business School. At 19, he had his own $1 million company. As he says, he comes from a family that has worked with the Rothschilds for 4 generations. His great-uncle on his mother's side is the entrepreneur Josef Neckermann. His father-in-law at the time was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and was the head of the Bank of Boston for Latin America, Haiti, and the Caribbean.
In an almost 3-hour interview on Unscripted by Ben, he describes himself as an MK Ultra product. According to Homm, he experienced physical, psychological, and sexual abuse, as well as torture for targeted programming from the age of 4. His father raped him and used extreme violence on him, so that he once broke 4 ribs and 2 others were fractured. Florian tried to get out again and again and failed miserably. When he finally managed to get out at the age of 47, an international manhunt began. His Wikipedia entry reads like a thriller.
It's about maintaining power, passing on power, increasing power. Everything else doesn't matter. The history books are important. They want to sort out the most intelligent, traumatize them, and rebuild them. It can be math, it can be money, it can be power, it can be politics. We live in such an illusory world. Oh my god, you're a fucking MK Ultra product. Through physical, psychological, and sexual abuse, which the young child... It started with me from the age of 5, so 4 actually. There are photos to prove it. Split, broken. What was missing? Love and attention. Love and attention for the broken is only given through extraordinary performance. Then you might get a hug. Then maybe you'll get some praise. Of course, you're punished if the performance isn't top. There's sadism involved. Who does such sick shit with children? Unfortunately, I call it Darwinian selection, because very few people manage what's so hard. So the resilient ones, that's maybe 2 or 3%. You put 100 into the program, but only 3 come out. My brother developed severe asthma and had to repeat a class. And I know a few more from the program who are bipolar. Some, of course, died quite early. Many are addicted to drugs. But it's a merciless thing, and you're turned into a performance machine. I had largely repressed the serious abuse. It is, you go into a space where there's another world, you know, in the abuse.
Florian knows very well-known and influential people who have gone through the same program. When Ben asked if they would tell exactly the same story as him, he said,
Exiting is an absolute no-go.
That sounds like cult, doesn't it? because hundreds of victims and witnesses around the world testify to the same thing. I called my series The Blood Cult, but Lou Büchler from Rally Info published an article about me a few days ago saying that I had invented all of this. Of course, we are the evil cult, and my dad is the evil cult boss of all people. A God-fearing man who stands before God day and night and has such a fine-meshed conscience that he wouldn't hurt a fly. He hugged and kissed us children several times a day throughout our childhood. And of course now, too, when we managed to see each other. So what Florian Hum could only have dreamed of, we had in abundance: love, appreciation, and recognition. Lou Büchler of Rellinfo apparently thinks that I have a horrible imagination and have made up the most disgusting descriptions of rape and torture for 385 victims.
You, of all people, should come up with something so disgusting. For years, I've experienced you as one of the most sincere and generous fighters for truth and justice. Lois has listened to countless gruesome stories directly from those affected. She keeps climbing into these deep mud pits because all the other well-paid journalists don't do it or aren't allowed to do it. You mostly made these documentaries at night because your days are already full enough.
Yes, and of all the bad things, I only put a fraction of each in my documentaries to spare the viewers. But if the result is that you still do not believe the survivors, that there are such perverted people who torture other people in order to make them compliant and program them, then you have to see it with your own eyes. And that's why I'm showing you now a heavily blurred and heavily censored torture video that was released to the public without sound, only 6 seconds, because we all have to look and talk about it until everyone knows. Otherwise, it will never stop.
Let me interrupt you for a moment. It's obvious that the perpetrators don't want such videos to become public. That's why all the laptops are always cleared away first when a perpetrator is discovered. John McAfee, for example, took high-resolution drone footage of Epstein Island and collected 31 terabytes of incriminating material on the elite's human trafficking syndicate. It is said to contain pagan rituals, satanic influences, and ritual child abuse. He is also said to have made 4K recordings showing King Charles on Epstein's Island, and not just for a visit, but he was photographed engaging in things with underage boys. All public videos have been deleted.
On his X channel, I saw that he wrote on October 15th, 2020, "I'm happy here, I have friends, the food is good, everything is good. If I hang myself like Epstein, it is not my fault." 8 months later, the world was told that McAfee had been found dead in his prison cell with a noose around his neck. According to his wife, John had often spoken of unscrupulous CIA agents and cartels who wanted to kill him because he had important information that made him a threat to powerful people. After the publication, there were many attacks and near accidents on him.
Especially when all of his revealing videos have been censored, it is all the more urgent that we make these crimes public. And that's why we are now looking at these 6 seconds so that nobody can say it doesn't exist.
You've now experienced 6 seconds of blurry torture video without the heart-wrenching screams, and it's already unbearable. And now let us put ourselves in the position of this tied-up victim. According to high-ranking experts, this is exactly where a so-called personality split occurs. When something is so unbearably cruel, the personality splits into different parts, according to their research, in order to be able to survive at all. And this is how the so-called dissociative identity disorder, DIS for short, or multiple personality develops. Without knowledge of these in-depth specialist studies, the following sounds like an insane fantasy. I had to struggle with this myself for a few years. But the leading specialists among the experts convinced me. For example, psychiatrist Dr. Corridon Hammond, trauma therapist Michaela Huber, specialist in child and adolescent psychiatry and psychotherapy Dr. Andreas Krüger, qualified psychologist and psychotherapist Claudia Flies, psychologist Hans J. Markowitz, specialist in psychosomatic medicine and psychotherapy Dr. Harold Schickedenz, qualified psychologist and trauma therapist Dr. Phil Dr. Bettina Overkamp, German author and journalist Ulla Freuling, psychologist Dr. Hans-Ulrich Glesch, etc., etc. Let's first listen to what the other experts have to say.
Liz Wiske-Strauch has been working on this topic as an investigative journalist for decades. She interviewed numerous victims, witnesses, and professionals. She is the director of the public service film Höllenleben, Life in Hell, with research by Guido Grant, and has now released a new film on the subject of ritual abuse. As the public media now completely censor the topic, she had to produce the film Blind Spot on a donation basis and distribute it on her own. She also published a non-fiction book on the phenomenon this year, Split Personalities, Dissociative Identity Disorder Between Trauma and Denial.
There are numerous studies on dissociative identity disorder, which used to be called multiple personality. And this is a diagnosis that, just as the term ritual violence, is constantly being called into question, even though there are endless scientific studies on the subject.
With her book, Liz Wiske-Strauch makes a breakthrough for all the many survivors who are not believed. In her film Blind Spot, Dr. Andreas Kruger, a specialist in child and adolescent psychiatry and psychotherapy, has a say. He says that when the victim's dissociation is overcome, memories suddenly come up and the body reacts massively with trembling and attacks of breathlessness and sweating. He says that it has been proven thousands of times that there's organized pedocriminal sexual violence, which is always ritualized to some extent. It is obvious that larger organizations are behind it.
The psychologist Hans J. Markowitz has spent almost his entire life conducting brain research. He has no doubt that dissociative disorders exist because he and his colleagues have seen them hundreds of times.
It means they are actually tortured, trained, you could say conditioned to function at the push of a button when you need the children for certain situations.
My father has made it his mission in life to traumatize, torture, control, manipulate, and turn me into the creature he wants, and which he can access whenever he wants.
And the more they are maltreated with pain and the like, the more likely it is that their identity will remain split. Which is actually a very, very ingenious survival strategy of the brain. Really a masterstroke of the brain, when it is no longer bearable, then to split itself up internally, so to speak, and to split off the knowledge and also the feelings. And thus, the children can somehow still function in everyday life. So, one part experiences the terrible things and the other goes to school and knows nothing about the terrible things.
Well, they use triggers. I want to say that there is something like an everyday personality, yes, my actual personality, which is in everyday life, which acts normally, which went to school and learned and played with children. And on the other hand, there's this, I like to call it the night personality, even if it didn't always take place at night. But these split-off parts that became active when the abuse was going on. And what my father did, he triggered me with things. For example, he took off my glasses and said a certain sentence. From then on, I froze. From then on, I was like switched off. And at some point, he put my glasses back on and I was back in reality, in everyday life. And my everyday consciousness didn't realize what was in between. It completely blocked it out. Mind control MK Ultra is something that was applied to me, something he had been working towards. He was a professional soldier, had contacts to various circles.
Hatte Kontakte in die verschiedensten Kreise hinein.
In this so-called night personality, as Hadassah calls it, gruesome things happen according to mass testimonies from survivors. How a split personality can manifest itself could even be observed on public television with prominent personalities. Such scenes are best explained by a personality split. Here are a few examples.
In the Saturday night crew with our music intro starting next Saturday night. But folks, I want to take you to the world premiere of one of his new videos called Berserk. Take a listen. So was that the great Rick Rubin who was helping produce that with you, Marshall, when you did that?
Yes, sorry. Live TV. Live TV freaks me out a little bit. Yes, I'm sorry. What was the question?
So that's where I come in. And I keep your emotions, and I deal with your emotions over here. But when it comes time for business, I implement what you told me on the emotion side into handling it in a professional manner, because sometimes it's hard for you.
Speaking of showing us, 2 Chainz, you got a shot, 2 Chainz. You got a shot, let me see that shot, dog. Speaking of showing us, 2 Chainz, you got a shot. Speaking of showing us, 2 Chainz, you got speaking of showing us, 2 Chainz, you got a shot, 2 Chainz. Got a shot. Let me see that shot, dog.
Oladipo, who is the reigning 2-time champion of the All-Star Weekend player talent show.
You are talented. I give you a little credit on that. A lot of credit. You're very talented. I mean, you're not a karaoke guy like me, but you can actually. You know they call me Old Brown Eyes, right?
As a matter of fact, you both have experience singing New York, New York. His was at the Slam Dunk Contest. Yours was in Vegas.
Yes.
We had the show out there. Here's just a little sampling.
And that is what they were doing.
And you mentioned Kyrie with tonight's draft lottery. We now have the answer for how that trade finishes up. So how do we view that now in totality? I'm afraid we lost Rachel. We lost Rachel Nichols. Come back.
I'm here. I'm here.
You can hear me?
Instant. Come back.
Instant. Come back. One last time.
Meine Mutter redet genauso wie du bist. Ja? Wann wirst du erwachsen? Nein, das sollst du ja nicht, denn es gehört ja eine große Portion Naivität dazu, diesen Beruf auszuüben. Aber mit einer gewissen Ehrlichkeit, mit einer gewissen Ernsthaftigkeit. Und was wir da versucht haben hochzustemmen, hat wirklich was mit viel Arbeit. Nein, versucht haben hochzustemmen, hat wirklich was
Yeah, I was kind of, I was a little down. I found out I was injured and I had to have surgery again, or with another knee. But at the end of the day, I have amazing teammates. Guys like Draymond, everybody on this team, they come over. Guys like Draymond, everybody on this team, they come over.
Please? No? Okay, not happening.
I'm sorry. I was in a trance.
Yes, like they say in Catholic school, leave room for the Holy Ghost. Anyway, there is a lot of memories today, actually. It's a big day in music history.
35 years ago today, Elvis Presley passed away, the king of rock and roll. And as Mark Cohn says in his great song, Walking in Memphis, there's a pretty little thing waiting for the...
Individual split-off parts of the personality can remain in childhood, as is vividly shown in the movie Hell's Life by survivors of ritual violence. For example, when dissociating, adults can suddenly regain the voice, behavior, and handwriting of a small child. Here is a practical example from Britney Spears that raises the suspicion that she was molded from such a forge.
My birthday, I'm not turning 42, I'm turning 5.
In a strange video on her birthday, Britney Spears said, "I'm turning 5 years old," and added she had to go to kindergarten. She also seemed upset about how the paparazzi made her face look, saying it appeared like a white Jason mask.
Make my face look like I'm wearing like a white Jason mask.
Dr. Harald Schickedenz, a specialist in psychosomatic medicine and psychotherapy, confirms this mechanism of splitting. He says that the horrific torture is perceived as education by the victims. It is a code for conditioning, or so-called programming, as others called it. Despite this fact, a Swiss high court has classified ritual violence as a conspiracy narrative and therefore as a falsehood or half-truth. If a psychologist does not clearly declare so-called half-truths or untruths, according to this judgment, he can be fined up to 25,000 francs by the Professional Ethics Chamber.
In the film Blind Spot, family law specialist Rudolf von Bracken raises the question of how we actually come to not believe a child who confides in a professional. Just because society finds it so incredible, we declare it unbelievable. Trauma therapist Jansa Schlitzer has a wealth of experience in complex traumatization caused by ritual violence. She says that torture methods are often used that leave no traces because the child usually lives in an environment where it could attract attention. According to the reports she has received over the years, torture is often carried out with electricity. Watch the entire film Blind Spot on the topic of ritual violence. 10 expert voices and 7 survivors are featured.
Media block reporting.
But now the media-hyped counter-movement comes into play, labeling all the victims and witnesses as satanic panic. Here we see journalists and very welcome guests on all kinds of public media platforms. Most of them have an international influence in the media. They publish and appear in a wide variety of media formats. Here we see the WTF Talk Satanic Panic Update number 3 from this past summer. The protagonists spend a whole hour and 36 minutes talking condescendingly about Liz Wieskestrauch's elaborate film work and don't have anything good to say about her. At this point, I would like to briefly mention that this film was calculated to cost 347,000 euros without any profit calculation. Liz Wieskestrauch had to raise all this money through voluntary donations.
My impression is that dissociative identity disorder is something like the go-to explanation in this theory, because it supposedly answers a lot of questions that can be asked about this conspiracy narrative.
This lack of professional distance, that's what can always be observed in these problematic cases, that this professional distance was not there at any level, but that it was compassion that caused damage. I think you've all seen that.
Exactly.
According to Susanna Niehaus, who heads the Competence Center for Interrogations of Children and Their Victim Protection at Lucerne University of Applied Sciences and Arts, the real damage is done by compassion. According to her, there's a lack of professional distance. Speaking of compassion, during the entire 96 minutes in which these people destroy Liz's film work, not once is compassion shown or the victims spoken about. In Liz's film, 7 victims talk about their gruesome experiences. Not a single one of their statements is reflected.
The main theme of the movie is about a current case in Germany, which we already introduced at the beginning. It is about the little girl who claims to have been ritually abused and tortured by her father and other perpetrators. Despite an ultrasound examination of her severely damaged rectum, she is forcibly transferred to the accused father.
I ask Susanna Niehaus and the entire Satanic Panic panel, where exactly did compassion do harm here?
In conclusion, all the victims in the film reported on this kind of torture, programming, and very deliberate splitting of the personality.
The criminal psychologist Lydia Benecke is the most famous of all the advocates of this media-pushed narrative about the alleged satanic panic and the so-called false memory syndrome. Incidentally, a self-confessed pedophile was co-founder of the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. You can see this in one of our programs, by the way. So these people claim that the preoccupation with these atrocious crimes is supposedly just mass moral hysteria, and that all these testimonies of the victims are false memories. Let's listen briefly to one of her lectures.
Well, there's a small circle of people who are trauma therapists, and the smaller circle of people is very, very strongly in favor of these theses that they really like in a movie, the dissociative identity disorder, which used to be called multiple personality, that they can already consciously achieve it in small children. And that they also program the children, as they have just said, with certain triggers, like a Pavlovian dog. If that worked, I'm relatively sure that all kinds of secret services and armies around the world would have made use of it long ago. But nobody has, only the Satanists, supposedly.
And precisely this assertion is demonstrably untrue, because it is a military secret service product by origin. We already pointed this out at the beginning of the movie. The lawyer Dr. Marcel Polte proves this in his books with original military documents. This was also confirmed by survivors Fiona Bennett, Bryce Taylor, Kathy O'Brien, and many others. According to the Foundation for Combating Injustice, the CIA carried out heinous child experiments as early as the 1960s as part of the MK-Ultra project.
And the empirical Pavlovian dog experiment actually confirms the statements of survivors of ritual violence. This was carried out by the Russian researcher and Nobel Prize winner Ivan Petrovich Pavlov in order to prove classical conditioning, according to which one can be conditioned by targeted trigger stimuli.
Hundreds of survivors and witnesses of ritual violence report that the military not only takes advantage of these conditioning programs, but has even researched them and plays a leading role in them.
I am a survivor of satanic ritual abuse. I am a survivor of trauma-based mind control, which involved military as well as occult practices. And those are broad categories. There's also a component for me of NASA involvement.
High military people are also involved secretly.
We were sold to the federal government by our father and his priesthood and military leaders, and I can tell you names if you want them. Church camp with Pearl Knight. She's no longer with us, but she was also in my church camp, and she was also one of the women that did the experiments in the deep underground military bases at Vandenberg Air Force Base. These psychopaths at the top believe they'll create a satanic order that will rule the world. At a high level of the U.S. government, there was support of this kind of thing with Operation Bluebird, Paperclip, Mockingbird, and of course, MK-Ultra, still going on today.
I have been used for horrible things like assassinations and torture and mutilation of people. I have parts that have been trained with military. So part of my inner world is with the military. Then those parts can be used to be sent out to spy or do whatever on other groups.
And I had SRAs in Mormon temples. I survived SRAs in mosques, in synagogues, in cathedrals, in palaces and castles, and Druid ruins, in Europe, things like that, in Asia, the Philippines, so that's the first, but that's just in the first few years. From there, then the military mind control traumas came into play, and I moved from military base to military base for horrible science experiments and traumas. I had chips in my body and wires in my brain. I'm in this laboratory setting, and a man that I could see such kindness and gentleness in his eyes. And he too, like me at that time, had wires coming out of his scalp. And they gave him an injection, and the mind control and whatever switches they're flipping in him. And suddenly he's a very different person. Wow. And he's committing the worst of crimes you could imagine against women and children right in front of me. Just horrendous things that I dare not repeat, just too horrendous. And he was crying because he couldn't stop.
Oh, wow.
Something had taken over, and he's watching himself do these things, and I can see still that gentleness and kindness in his eyes, and he's weeping because he cannot stop himself now. And I see the evil in the eyes of the man that gave him the injection. And then my uncle is whispering in my ear.
On June 18, 2025, a press conference was held in Hamburg, Germany, on the arrest of the 20-year-old so-called White Tiger. According to the investigation, White Tiger is part of an internationally active group and a huge network behind it. Victims are vulnerable children aged 8 to 17, perpetrators, satanic cults, among others. He was charged with murder, attempted murder, sexual abuse of children, rape. The list of proven crimes is displayed here because it is too cruel to mention. The aim of the group is said to be collecting and sharing the gruesome images and videos.
And here it comes, dear viewers. White Tiger has carried out a total of over 100 atrocities using manipulation techniques without being present himself. Via internet transmission, White Tiger and the other perpetrators instructed the victims to commit cruel acts, and they carried them out on camera. This was done through targeted psychological manipulation, conditioning, and remote control. The police had to analyze 665 recordings with 120 hours of playback time. It was apparently a system of fear. So it seems that there is the existence of such a monster. The question is now whether the criminal psychologist and police trainer Lydia Benecke has a knowledge gap, or whether there's more to it than this. Who is Lydia Benecke? Who are her co-stars Bernd Harder and Christopher Pilz? Why is it so important to them to deny satanic ritual violence? And at the same time, however, Lydia Benecke and her group, for example, are taking quite a swipe at the OCG and KlaTV. So that's us, the volunteer core team of KlaTV.
In the program SRF Scandal Robin Riemann, we show how Lydia Benecke appears in pictures and conferences with a satanic high priest named Francis Dollarhide. She has conducted interviews with real vampires and trivializes vampirism. Bernd Harder poses with Lydia Benecke in front of a picture of a woman being cut up. The program also shows journalist Robin Riemann's connections to the Satanist scene. He has ridiculed many victims and witnesses of satanic ritual violence. A few days later, a senior physician, a head physician, numerous therapists, a chief reporter, and 2 teachers were dismissed. We proved that Robin Riemann was friends with the satanic high priest Francis Dollarhide on Facebook at the time, as well as with Lydia Benecke and Christopher Pilz.
And now it gets even more explosive. Jan Lopez worked as a video technician for Swiss television in Geneva. In 1995, he and his colleagues were tasked with making the internet accessible to all employees. While doing so, they discovered masses of snuff videos, so violent porn films, on the computers of Swiss television executives. Jan Lopez reported satanic rituals, tortures, and murders that were on display there. This revelation was brutally suppressed on Swiss television so that it never came to light, as he told us. All traces of the 3 subsequent SRF scandals, which went through the media at the time, were also deleted from the internet. In 2000, Roland Bargetto, a high-ranking employee of Swiss television, was convicted of storing masses of hardcore pornography. In 2005, George Rosende discovered pornographic films on the PC of Thierry Catherine from Swiss television. George reported the discovery and was dismissed immediately. In 2010, Raymond Sumsteg, the director of French-speaking Swiss radio and television, was convicted of raping his granddaughter between the ages of 4 and 8. These were public scandals that were all deleted from the internet, as contemporary witness Jan Lopez uncovered with the help of Gerhard Ulrich. In 2012, television presenter and producer Patrick Allenbach was also convicted of sexual assault on underage boys. In SRF employee circles, it was also apparent that Swiss television executives were organizing so-called seminars at the Château de Bossy, to which very young, scantily clad girls who were not related to the guests were also invited.
In his book, Jan Lopez tells how his young daughter Amandine was brought into the scene of ritual child abuse by his wife. Amandine was separated from him. He published everything on the internet and also gave a voice to other victims of justice. On May 13, 2019, his boss at Swiss television asked him to withdraw the publications on the internet. Lopez had, however, never mentioned that he worked for Swiss television. He removed the website about his daughter but left the channel with the other victims, and Lopez was dismissed without notice on June 24, 2019. He was summoned by the public prosecutor's office in Geneva and forbidden to publish anything. He then published a book entitled The Amandine Case. In it, he named many people who were involved in pedocriminal networks. The names of 5 judges, 4 other people including school principals and mayors, 9 other pedophiles, as well as 7 lawyers and judges who seemingly had not taken the necessary measures but opposed them. He also mentioned many other people who are said to be involved in the case. Gerhard Ulrich, who translated and published Lopez's explosive revelations in French, English and German, reports,
the second publication. What happened then? It was mid-October when Jan Lopez suddenly disappeared from the scene. What year? In 2019, he was taken out of circulation, and his friends from Citoyens pour la Justice Publique looked for him and didn't find him. Over time, it has leaked out that he was taken into custody by the judicial police of Geneva and placed in solitary confinement and mistreated.
Jan Lopez's former boss at Swiss television sued Gerhard Ulrich because of the publications. Now let's jump back in time. Here we see Jan Lopez on his deathbed. On the official channel of the Swiss Church of Satan, we see a video in which they make fun of Jan Lopez's death throes, disfigure him, and portray him as a devil.
We are your children, and we invoke thee this night. Hail, Satan!
His death was symbolically alluded to in an earlier video. In another video, a voodoo doll with the initials YL is repeatedly pierced and burned. According to witnesses close to Jan Lopez, XX called on Swiss television to fire him. XX is said to have supplied the federal police with falsified video footage in order to arrange Lopez's arrest. This is the testimony of the witnesses. Together with the Swiss Church of Satan, XX was Lopez's fiercest persecutor, but also that of other highly influential educators on satanic ritual violence, such as Stan Milo and Janet Seaman. In her videos, XX turns the tables and accuses Jan Lopez and Stan Milo of pedophilia. XX ridicules the Amandine case, just as the Swiss Church of Satan does. In her videos, she also defames other witnesses and victims, such as the mother, Séverine, who testifies that her little boy, Amoris, was ritually abused and tortured on a military base and in a Masonic lodge, with the complicity of his father. According to Jan Lopez, XX is working with Swiss television to protect certain directors and department heads. Here we see her in the costume of Rosemary, from the psychothriller Rosemary's Baby, who gives birth to the son of Satan, whom the cult worships. The public prosecutor's office in Geneva has filed 24 complaints against XX and the Swiss Church of Satan without investigation.
Here are some excerpts from the videos in question.
After Lopez's death, activists from French-speaking Switzerland explained the case of Jan Lopez on Agora TV. This channel was deleted from YouTube. The Swiss Church of Satan launched a fake channel of the same name to denigrate the channel. The same thing happened to Jan Lopez 777's original channel, which was deleted and replaced by a fake channel of the same name. Using illegal voice imitations, they have Lopez speak in these fake videos. François de Siebenthal, a contributor to Agora TV, presents evidence that YouTube allows the Swiss Church of Satan to distribute its videos, while Agora TV videos are censored. This is done on the basis of false complaints and arguments, namely so-called copyright infringements. The complaints were lodged with a gendarmerie in France, which has no jurisdiction and, according to Siebenthal, is actually a barracks.
The Swiss Church of Satan burns the image of the original Agora TV videos, in which, for example, Jan Lopez and François de Siebenthal can be seen in one of their videos with the background music of a satanic torture ritual.
Satanism.
It is precisely such cruel, satanic rituals that all the victims of satanic ritual violence describe. Lynn Morris describes it as the frequency of hell, Satanism and Luciferianism. She mentions blood sacrifices, torture and ritual abuse.
Pierre, a survivor from France, reports a gruesome ritual murder of a baby in which the satanic high priest, his own grandfather, guided his own hand as a child. The baby was then eaten. Cannibalism. He's now fighting for people to finally understand that there is an incredibly large network behind this. The former UN official and European president of the Club of Rome, Călin Georgescu, testifies that more than 8 million children disappear every year.
Christy Allen reports on the gruesome, satanic sacrifice of a baby whose heart was cut out.
Aria tells of a cruel ceremonial sacrifice of a little boy in which the children were asked to stab the poor little boy in the heart. She ran away.
Kibi Linga also reports Satanism, ritual abuse, murder, cannibalism, cruelty to animals, and incest.
Erica Ingram describes all these things that she has experienced as a survivor of Satanism as bizarre. She says that celebrities committed these terrible acts and consciousness manipulations.
Sherry's grandfather was a satanic priest and subjected her to horrific rituals, severe physical and psychological torture. She survived the severe satanic ritual abuse.
Jay Parker grew up with satanic ritual abuse and trauma-based programming. He describes these experiences as absolute horror. Cheryl Beck says, Satan knows no mercy. She reports on diabolical blood orgies, the MK Ultra programming, and extreme ritual child abuse by high-ranking personalities.
Jane's gruesome experiences also involve prominent figures in secret groups, Freemasons who performed shocking rituals.
Shriz warns in her gruesome victim report against degenerate, high-grade Freemasonry, a worldwide cult that only causes harm. They are said to be in direct contact with Satan through their rituals and summon him through these. These statements also confirm the victim reports of Aria, Lynn Morris, Anna Noel, Rachel Rama, and Heike A.
And we haven't even talked about Carolyn Bramhall, Becky Percy, Robin, Latia, Nancy Kruger, Pia, Sandro, Natalia, even Rachel Wood, Esme Bianco, and the other 35 survivors who are all still on our list.
And in closing, 3 last examples. Mia from Germany explains that all these bad things are done for Satan, for their ruler. They worship Satan. Survivor Heike A. says that they were repeatedly told, when you move from being a victim to a perpetrator, Satan works through you and you have power.
So my best definition that I can come up with for satanic ritual abuse is an extremely sadistic, psychological, emotional, spiritual, sexual, physical torture of children through a ceremony where the devil, Satan, is worshipped through blaspheming God by mocking the death and resurrection of Jesus.
If your ultimate goal is to be famous, then you're gonna do a lot to get there, like sign your name in blood in a contract with the devil. Like you're gonna.
Thank you to Satan for giving me inspiration on how to play this role.
children will love us, and your children will join us. We're coming for your children. We're coming for them. We're coming for your children.
The world needs to wake up. This world is owned by Satan, and we need to take it back.
This short compilation illustrates all the testimonies of survivors of satanic ritual violence who testify that Satan has taken possession of perpetrators from all imaginable backgrounds to do the most diabolical things. We have by no means presented all the testimonies we have received on satanic ritual violence, but time is up.
The Swiss Church of Satan provides an excellent account of the hundreds of other survivors in its own videos. In their videos, they give us insight into torture, rape, programming and conditioning, cannibalism, satanic rituals, black satanic masses with hypnotized victims, kidnapped children who disappear into dungeons, videos with contempt for children, medical crimes. While we, KlaTV, constantly face having our videos deleted and censored and going from one court case to the next, these videos can remain in the public domain without any consequences. Specialists on the satanic ritual violence scene suspect that some of their videos contain sound and video recordings of actual atrocities.
that this is no longer just about bad and evil people, but about spiritual forces of malice and death coming from invisible spheres surrounding us. The Bible calls these powers cosmocrators, powers of origin, evil spirits, unclean spirits, demonic beings, namely those that have taken possession of people who are receptive to them. Spiritual powers such as sin, death, and the devil can only be overcome, banished, and put in permanent chains by the powers of God inside us. Any research, however well-founded it will be without effect, and any evidence, however plausible and irrefutable it may be, will seem like a mere delusion as long as our investigative findings are not accompanied by the power of the Spirit. Yes, I say, are powered and enforced by God. It is fact, when we unite our innermost willpower every morning, when we make use of the power of God that dwells within each of us and begin to proclaim creatively together because we believe, then all the powers submit to us. The good ones comply, do what we say, and the bad ones comply. People possessed by the devil are thus disempowered. Constructs of lies that have been solidified by diabolical powers collapse, and people suddenly recognize the truth. That is the reason why we are in the millions today. They are awakened, as we say in our language, through united proclamations and synergic prayers of faith. That is, through synergic expressions of will, if you want to call it this way, instead of prayer. Through synergic expression of will by righteous people, whole cities have already been turned upside down, unyielding mafia structures have been shattered, and previously impenetrable satanic strongholds burst like soap bubbles. And that's why we connect every morning at 6 a.m. worldwide and power our investigative findings with spiritual might. And how do we do that, you may ask? For example, by always giving orders to our assigned spiritual powers at 6 a.m. to 6:05 a.m., that is only 5 minutes everywhere in the world, but at the same time, we command every morning at home, judge yourselves, betray yourselves, destroy yourselves mutually if there is no other way. These are our commands, which we pronounce, and the heavenly hosts see to it that they are implemented. Because, that can't be and never will be our job. So let's do it together so that we know what we are talking about. All truth comes to light now. All the deceit of the deceivers breaks apart. Because we are all one, heaven grants us weight. Now you. All truth comes to light now.
All truth comes to light now.
All the deceit of the
deceivers breaks apart. Because we are all one. The heavens give us weight. Below the broadcast, you will find our daily proclamations that we proclaim in synergic creative power. Please share this video with all your friends and acquaintances so that there really will be light. We all need to cry out for these victims, or it will never end. We would like to thank the survivors who showed courage and came forward. We love you with all our hearts and pray for you every day.
We also call on all other survivors of satanic ritual violence to do the same. Dare to go public, like the women in Israel. Come into the light and register on Wikipedia.org. It is the largest platform for suppressed dissenting voices worldwide. We are also collecting reports on child abduction and child trafficking. If someone else has already entered you as an affected person, you can correct and complete the entries. Wikipedia has secured many original videos that are no longer publicly accessible. Therefore, register on Wikipedia.
Alle Wahrheit in allen vereinigt sich jetzt, aller Trug der Trüger zerbricht. Alle Wahrheit in allen vereinigt sich jetzt, aller Trug der Trüger zerbricht. Unsere Einheit ist nicht in einer Religion, wir haben nur eine gemeinsame Not. Und wenn wir schlafen oder streiten, statt vereint im Kampf zu stehen, sind wir bald schon alle miteinander tot. Alle Wahrheit in allen vereinigt sich jetzt, aller Trug der zerbricht. Alle Wahrheit in allem vereinigt sich jetzt, aller Trug der Trüger zerbricht. Alle Wahrheit in allem vereinigt sich jetzt, aller Trug der Trüger zerbricht. Ja, alle Wahrheit in allem vereinigt sich jetzt, aller Trug der Trüger zerbricht. Ja, zerbricht. In nur Stunden brennt jetzt nieder Gottes Feuer in Kraft, was der Feind sich erbaut hat in Äonen der Nacht. In nur Stunden brennt jetzt nieder Gottes Feuer in Kraft, was der Feind sich erbaut hat in Äonen der Nacht. In nur Stunden brennt jetzt nieder Gottes Feuer in Kraft, was der Feind sich erbaut hat in Äonen der Nacht. In nur Stunden brennt jetzt nieder Gottes Feuer in Kraft, was der Feind sich erbaut hat in Äonen der Nacht. In nur Stunden brennt jetzt nieder Gottes Feuer in Kraft, was der Feind sich erbaut hat in Äonen der Nacht. In nur Stunden brennt jetzt nieder Gottes Feuer in Kraft, was der Feind sich erbaut hat in Äonen der Nacht. In nur Stunden brennt jetzt nieder Gottes Feuer in Kraft, was der Feind sich erbaut hat in Äonen der Nacht. In nur Stunden brennt jetzt nieder Gottes Feuer in Kraft, was der Feind sich erbaut hat in Äonen der Nacht. In nur Stunden brennt jetzt nieder Gottes Feuer in Kraft, was der Feind sich erbaut hat in Äonen der Nacht. In nur Stunden brennt jetzt nieder Gottes Feuer in Kraft, was der Feind sich erbaut hat in Äonen der Nacht. In Äonen der Nacht. Hey, was der Feind sich erbaut hat in Äonen der Nacht.
Hey, this is the KlaTV History Archive. 1 billion francs worth of programs. And best of all, it's free for you. Fill out the form right now and you'll get an exclusive free hard drive directly as a gift from your local KlaTV representative. Really free? Absolutely. The only price is that you help to copy this unique history archive and pass it on to 2 contacts free of charge. Changing the world can be so easy. Start today.